They don't have really anything in the backfield. And defensively, it's, I'm not going to say it's a mash unit, but it's a who's who of guys playing well in spurts. Because they're constantly rotating and benching guys because of bad play, and the next guy steps up and plays well for a couple of games, only to eventually get benched for the next guy to step up and play well for a couple of games. So if they can get consistent play collectively out of the guys they designate as starters for that defensive unit, I mean, this is a team with promise, but again, it's a loaded AFC West.
That's the other thing, yeah. Their offensive line's not great either.
No, and that's why Murray got killed, because, I mean, the design of this offense...
Wait, Murray was killed. I missed this. Was that on the injury report? Murray's handling death.
The scheme of this offense does not coincide with the makeup of this offensive line. So, yes, in that regard, you are right. They do need to upgrade the offensive line as well if this is the offense they plan on running going forward.
Yeah, for sure. But you're right. I think some sort of strong option in the running game would really help Murray out as well.
At number 9 is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who did not let go of their head coach. This is what Jaguars owner Shad Khan said, quote, "The decision I'm making to keep our staff intact for 2020 has nothing to do with our victory on Sunday and everything to do with my positive meetings with Dave, Doug, the coordinators, and our players, as well as my belief that this is not the time to consider an overhaul of our organization." I mean, dude, this was the time to consider an overhaul of your organization. You've got Nick Folk, whom I don't think is the future of this team, based on the fact that Minshew magic was something that happened. I think you have to go ahead with the rookie, even though I don't think Gardner Minshew is necessarily the answer at quarterback in Jacksonville
He's
either.
not.
How dare you?
Listen,
Minshew is the answer to most world problems.
I saw the last month of the season. Minshew was horrible.
But Nick Folk isn't much better. And so it comes down to the fact that they're going to have to make a decision on one of those two quarterbacks.
Is your kicker, Jay. Nick Foles is the quarterback.
Nick Foles, whatever. Nick Foles, same difference.
I agree with you, Jay. I agree with you. That Jacksonville team is another one that's lacking identity. I mean, they're what do you do? What do you do there? What a shambles.
And the defense is supposed to be their strength, and their defense is trash.
They've got draft
but
capital.
The defense is getting old, and the younger guys want out. Look at Jalen Ramsey, and then look at everyone who stayed behind, and Calais Campbell and AJ Boye. These guys did not step up.
James, remember that was also in the days of Coughlin fining you for turning up 2 seconds early.
Yeah, but to Jay's point, the identity of this team was to be smash mouth running the ball with Leonard Fournette and playing solid defense. True. And Fournette, for whatever reason, and maybe it had to do more so with Coughlin than him being available, as far as his availability to play. But Fournette's not been on the field much since he's been drafted.
Mm-hmm. But they did have a good draft this past year. I think I quite like is Shark? He's called Chark, the wide receiver.
DJ Chark.
Yeah, they picked up a tremendous player in that the other Josh Allen, who might become the Josh Allen very soon. And they also signed drafted Jawan Taylor later in the draft. I think it was second or third round, who has done really well for them at offensive tackle this year. So they've got some hope there, and they've got 2 first-round picks coming up this year. So
the 10th pick in the draft is owned by the Cleveland Browns, who have way too much talent to be picking at number 10, but that's where it is. The Freddie Kitchens experiment didn't work out for them. There's no way that Cleveland can go ahead with another inexperienced head coach, which is why I think McCarthy makes the most sense in this particular area. Their list of candidates, though, includes Dennis Allen, the Saints defensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, the Bills offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, whom we've already mentioned, Urban Meyer has been the other college head coach that's been brought up, perhaps here in Cleveland, which would be a huge mistake. Greg Roman, the Ravens offensive coordinator. Robert, don't call me Mo Salah, 49ers defensive coordinator. And Kevin Stefanski, the Vikings offensive coordinator, whom they interviewed last year and were brought him in for a second interview. That's how well he came off with the Browns front office. But now that John Dorsey is out, probably Stefanski would not be the leading candidate at that particular position anymore. So we've already talked a lot about the Browns here. I think only interesting in maybe talking about some of these other candidates, Robert Saleh being a hot name, especially, but he was hot, but the Browns, the only team that put in a request to interview him.
But don't you guys agree that what the Browns need is an experienced veteran coach who comes along with a GM, like you're talking about with Wolf and McCarthy, as a combination to come in and try and steady that ship? I just can't imagine. Can you imagine an untested first-year head coach in that guy Saleh, for example? He might be great, but bringing an untested young head coach to that locker room, I don't see it getting any better. Then, do you?
No.
Jay, is it possible that the Browns with the 10th pick can draft some discipline, because that's what this team lacks more than anything?
Yeah.
Well, I hear Tom Coughlin's available. I mean,
no, yeah, but he's not going to coach.
People speak about Mayfield. I think on the field Mayfield's a good player, but this off the field talking and running his mouth all the time, he just needs a coach who comes in there and says to him, "Look, Baker, just shut up and let's get on with the game." You don't see the great quarterbacks in this league running their mouths like he does, and I quite like his sort of, what do they call it? You guys call it swag. I quite like.
I don't know what that is. It's not. I wouldn't call it that.
So I read an article on Mayfield about how the de facto offensive coordinator, I forget his name, basically said Freddie Kitchens would come in on Sunday and change and call plays that had absolutely nothing to do with what they worked on during the week, which would make sense for Mayfield's regression from his rookie season. Because he threw a ton of interceptions, not quite as many as Jameis Winston, but he was certainly on pace for a while there.
Yeah. He threw vital picks at times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think Baker will be fine if he has the right coach and perhaps the right system in place to make that happen, whether that's Mike McCarthy or not. If you ask Neil, Mike McCarthy will kill Baker Mayfield. That will end up on an injury report at some point. Baker Mayfield dealing with murder. So I don't know. We'll see.
It would be good to see an organization who, gives up a lot to sign an all-pro wide receiver, as they did with Beckham, and then actually get the ball to Beckham. Because I think they didn't do that enough, did they really?
No, they really didn't. The Jets are at 11. They should have fired their head coach. They're not. They're giving him another shot. Love the way he answered questions at the press conferences all year long. I mean, when he was first introduced, he's got crazy eyes. He grows a beard. He decides to keep it for whatever unknown reason, thinking that it's cool. Actually, I don't think it made him look cool at all. And then he's asked about Le'Veon Bell, and he says, "Go ask the general manager." Means he doesn't want Le'Veon Bell on this team. But, I mean, quite honestly, who else are you going to get running the football? It's not like you had a lot of success running the ball with any of your running backs.
No, but their offensive line was a shambles all year. I think they knew that even going into the year. What I don't get, though, James, and whenever you're facing the public, and you do that through the media, the NFL coaches, you've got to at least try. Even if you hate it and you can't stand doing it, try and put on a decent face, be open, honest, be upfront, be genial towards the guys who are asking you questions. And Big Gase doesn't seem to get that, and that worries me. That worries me a lot because it's such a huge part of the NFL and any sporting action and coaching these days. You try your best to put on a respectable face for the public, and he doesn't do that, and that worries me going forward because that's an arrogant man who thinks he knows better.
If he knew better, he'd still have his job in Miami, but here we are. And look, we all agree this guy is probably the one person in the NFL who shouldn't be coaching anyone, probably shouldn't even be near a Pop Warner field for that matter. But, I mean, aside from the offensive line, they could use wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, a pass rush.
You're saying they could use an offense?
Yeah, pretty much. They could also use the defensive line because they let their best lineman walk out the door across the street to the Giants.
Mm-hmm. Well, Williams, yeah. I just when you have a coach who goes from team to team. If I was an owner like McCarthy, if McCarthy ends up in Cleveland, you want to say, well, let's see how McCarthy has changed. What's changed in his attitude to being a coach that's going to make it work, because you don't want to see the same McCarthy come in. But what we've seen with Gase is we've just seen the same Gase at Denver. We've seen him at Miami, was it you said? And now we're seeing him with Jets. It's the same guy. He does not appear to have changed, and that's a huge concern.
So Ron made this point on Sunday's show during the recap that Gase basically got his head coaching job for one season of, and I use air quotes here, coaching Peyton Manning. But it's Peyton Manning. You don't necessarily have to coach him. You show him the offense, he absorbs it, and he performs. So who thought that this was a good idea to give him the job to groom, at the time, Tannehill, and now to give him a second shot at your franchise quarterback that you just drafted last year? Like, this
James,
is wrong with the system of coaching.
And would you also say that's probably the issue that McDaniels comes out of the Patriots with? You know, how good is he without Brady, for example?
Well,
he wasn't that good the first time around, although he did win a playoff game with Tim Tebow. But that would be the thing, is can he do it without Brady?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But, Jay, you can attest to this because you're the fan here. Here's what I've seen out of McDaniel for the years that he's been offensive coordinator in both stints with the Patriots. He's molded this offense not so much just around Tom Brady, but around the talent that they've had, whether it's heavy on the pass or heavy on the run.
That's fair.
He's been able to adjust this offense accordingly to the talent. So that's why his name keeps coming up. Gase had 1 year with Peyton Manning. That's not really the same thing. And you can say, well, you know, McDaniels had multiple years with Tom Brady. How would he do without him? Jay just mentioned he won a playoff game with Tim Tebow. So that has to give him some credence. But on top of all that, like I said, he's able to shift this offense look, and we've talked about their struggles all throughout this season as far as the lack of talent they have at wide receiver and the inconsistent play of the offensive line, and yet they're sitting at 12-4, winners of the division, and hosting a playoff game. So even though the offense may be down, it's still productive at points when it needs to be.
Yeah. And to a man, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick will both give McDaniels credit for the success of the offense. Now that can run both ways. When the offense is not successful,
he also gets the blame.
You're gonna get the blame.
But as far as Gase goes, look, there's two people in New York with the Jets who shouldn't have jobs in the NFL ever again. Gase is one, and their defensive coordinator, Williams, is the other.
Why are you so down on Greg Williams? I don't understand that.
Because blitzing is not a defensive scheme, Jay, and that's all this defense can seem to do. And they don't even do it well.
Fans not a defense. That was great. That could go in the team.
Neil, you had Greg Williams as a head coach in Washington. How'd you like it?
Well, I'm just disappointed he didn't chop any heads off any snakes when he was our defensive coordinator. Tell you that much.
He didn't put any murders on the injury.
No. There was
Tried to. Had a whole bounty thing going on.
No, in Washington it didn't. It was pretty poor.
New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans. That's proper defense. Good old days.
Oakland Raiders are at 12. They're picking 12th, I meant. They finished in our power rankings at 15.
Is that their pick, the 12th pick, or is that somebody else's pick?
That is their pick at number 12. We had them at 27 in our power rankings to start the season. They're an 8 team, and we'll see what's going on. I will say there's been a lot said.
They're a 7-9 team, Jay. They messed up at the end of the year.
Well, they're close enough. My point is, I think they have pieces that they can actually build around. Whether Derek Carr is part of those pieces could be questionable, but I do think that for all that's said about their GM being a TV guy, the TV guy did pretty well in the draft.